Hi you guys, welcome to my channel. If you're new here, hi, my name is Cheney and I'm a homeschooling mom of 3 kids, ages 12, 4, and 1. And today I'm going to share with you my first impressions of the Life of Fred series. Now, the series that I have in front of me is the intermediate to the beginning algebra section. I was very fortunate to be offered this set for free. It's one of those things that I've sort of had an eye on, but I buy a lot of curriculum, and there are some things that I put to the side because I'm really not sure about, or I've heard mixed reviews about. And so when I saw that this was for free, I couldn't pass it up. I took the chance and I grabbed it, and from what I'm seeing, I really like it. Now, the Life of Fred doesn't structure their curriculum in a way that that a regular curriculum would. So, for example, you're not going to have like grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, or level 1, level 2, level 3. There isn't. It's sillier than that. So one of the reasons that I hadn't purchased it was because I was having a really hard time navigating what order each book was supposed to go in. And the reason I actually ended up with this set is because the person who purchased them was confused and ended up purchasing a set that was too advanced for their child. Lucky for me, I have a child who is at the beginning stages of this level, but she actually, so far as I've discovered, skipped a level between this set and this set. So I'm going to try to go in the order that these are supposed to be read in and let you know what the gap is in between. But so far as what I've seen, I really like it. So this is a non-consumable book, which means that it's not intended for you to write in. It doesn't come along with a workbook or anything like that. This is more of like a reader, and there are some practice questions within that it says within it to do like on a separate piece of paper, but it doesn't do a lot of mastery work. This is different from either of the curriculums that I currently use with my kids, in that it's more of a storybook, and then there's some suggested practice, and like that's pretty much it. But the premise of the books is it follows the life of Fred, who is a 5-year-old college professor. So the stories are a bit silly. This is the first book in the intermediate series. There are 3 books in the series. This is the early middle school, like 6th, somewhere like 5th to 8th grade-ish. I would say probably earlier than that. Maybe 5th to 7th grade would be this intermediate series. These are not thick books, if you can tell. Like my 12-year-old could probably consume all 3 of these just reading them, in a month, if that. He's a pretty prolific reader. So, but it follows along the life of Fred. We've read through some of these stories, and they're very silly. It got a laugh out of both my 4-year-old and my 12-year-old, so that's good. So much so that I almost, now that I've looked at it, I'm like, maybe I should throw this in as like a read aloud, to go along with my 4-year-old and, eventually my 1-year-old when she's old enough for this type of thing. But each chapter is really short, so we'll show you. This is chapter 1. It's just a couple of pages, and then there's a your turn to play, which is sort of the questions at the end of each chapter. It's not a lot. I showed in another video that I had the Everything You Need to Know to Ace Math in One Big Fat Notebook, the middle school curriculum. So I feel like this is actually going to pair really nicely with that. I don't know if they're going to follow along the same path as far as, in what order that they're learning things, but I do think that this will be a great addition for my 12-year-old. He likes to read, so I might just sort of have him do this as a reader, and then we'll work through the notebook together, if that makes sense. But it doesn't just do math. So this incorporates a lot of things. This is, money math. I know there's some geography in here. There's like how to write a check. There's a little bit of government. Now some of it is really, really silly. But it makes a point at the bottom. I don't know if you can see here. There's like asterisks at the bottom. If they say anything that's not true, they'll put an asterisk at the bottom of the page and be like, this is not true. Sometimes just because you read things in a book, it's not true. And that, I guess if you have an impressionable child, you can have that. I feel like this is geared towards an age where they should really know if something is true or not true. But I feel like this is very applicable math. So, rather than focusing on like theorems or any kind of abstract concepts, this really brings the math into the real world and into ways that it can be applied. And so it shows you how it's applied through story. So you see here we have time. Trying to look for some more. We have a domain and codomain. We've got some division here, some fractions, multiplication. Right, so you don't have any like vocabulary words or anything like that. There's just all of these silly stories about Fred and the antics that he gets in as a 5-year-old college professor. And through those stories, it teaches math concepts. I'm more accustomed to like a mastery and a spiral program. If you watched my other math video, you'll see that I do include storybooks to teach math concepts, and I like including stories to teach math concepts, but I also really like for them to work on the concepts that they learn to apply them. I do feel like math is something that you have to apply often. It's something that you lose over time if you're not applying it. It's not like riding a bike. At least not to me, in my opinion. It could be that you feel differently about math or your kids feel differently about math. That is just my approach to math education. I feel like it is a mastery type of thing. It's a muscle that you have to keep flexing or it'll go soft. So I don't think that this curriculum has quite enough mastery, but the author of this series clearly disagrees with me at the beginning. He includes this note where he says, children will learn more from 3 problems done with joy than from 30 drill and kill exercises. So, maybe he's right. Maybe once my kid gets done going through this, he will have internalized more math from these silly stories than he would have if I had just given him worksheets. And I do try to keep math as like a living subject in our house. I don't want my kids to view math as like, oh, that subject that I don't like. I feel like every subject is beautiful and fun when you make it beautiful and fun, and this is a way to make math beautiful and fun. So if you have a kid, I would say, that really, really hates math, this is probably a good thing to go for because it's simple, it's not overkill, and it's funny and fun to read. So I could definitely see, I've already had my 4-year-old ask like, oh, can we read Fred again? So if that's something that, if you feel like is a really good family subject, these are a good thing to read. Now, they are also, in my opinion, a bit pricey. For each set, I went to look up the books that I need to fill in the gap that I have here, as well as the set for the elementary. Which the elementary is like, also has funny names. As you can see, this book is named Kidneys. And the elementary set, there's like apples and, silly things like that. None of the books are named for levels. So in this section, I have Kidneys, Liver, and Mineshaft. When I first brought these home, my 12-year-old asked if this was a health curriculum. So, and as you can see, it's really not a lot. This is supposed to be like, I would say a 5th to 6th grade level, maybe 7th grade level math. And altogether, I guess it makes one full textbook, but I feel like handing this to your kid probably makes it a little bit more digestible. And again, it's all sort of the same thing. We've got some geometry concepts here. It also, from what I've seen of other topics, it doesn't stick to like necessarily one subject until much higher math. So there's that. Yeah, this is weight, more division. So the order that it goes in is the order that I have it in. It starts with kidneys, then liver, then mineshaft. And then the next set up from there is this set. So you would start with fractions and then move on to decimals and percents. In this book, Fred is now 5.5. And it kind of focuses on the fact that he has this half added to his age, and it uses that as a way to really delve into the topic of fractions. Now there are other things included in here. We have read this. I want to see if I can find it. One of the stories that I read from here, Fred accidentally stabs himself in the foot. And my 4-year-old just thought it was hilarious. I'm not sure if I can find it. It was really funny though. And then these include the bridge. So the bridge is more of like a general review for everything you've read up to that point. They don't have these in the intermediate course. So this is an addition for the upper grade. I would say that these two would be the end of middle school type of range, so 7th to 8th grade-ish. These are the prequels to like a pre-algebra course. So depending on how you've advanced, I kind of hate putting too many ranges on it because, when I was in 8th grade, I was doing pre-algebra, but other kids don't do pre-algebra until, 9th grade. Some kids do pre-algebra in the 6th grade. It really depends on each kid. But this would be, like I said, these two would be a precursor to a pre-algebra course. Yeah, and as you can see, it also, it's got music in it, which for fractions is, they go hand in hand if you know anything about reading music. Tools, because construction uses a lot of fractions. So like I said, this is a very applicable math course. It's not going to spend too much time in the abstract. It's going to show you how these concepts would apply in the daily life through the version of a really silly story about a really silly character. Decimals and percents, you have the same thing. In each of the beginning of the books, it includes this: Mary Poppins was right, a spoonful of sugar can make life a little more pleasant. It is surprising that so few arithmetic books have figured that out. So this is basically, they call it, the spoonful of sugar math course. So, maybe that can help, especially if you have, like a morning book basket or anything like that as a bedtime story. Even this would be great. With this including the bridge, I might have him do these workbooks, or not workbooks, I'm sorry, let me correct myself. These word problems, but I just don't know how I feel about it yet. There are certain things that I'm a little more traditional about, and I feel like math is one of those things that I love weaving it into other things. I love showing math in the world around him and everything. I just am wary of how few problems there are. But I felt the same way about the Everything You Need to Know book. So there's that to take into consideration. Maybe with the two of these put together, it will give him like a fuller understanding of math. And then the last thing that I have to show you, so between those two that I just showed you and this one here is a pre-algebra course. There's pre-algebra with physical science, pre-algebra with something else that I can't remember, I think chemistry. So you would do the pre-algebra course before you would get to this book. But I got this book for free, so I'm going to keep it and use it when I get there. But this is The Life of Fred, Beginning Algebra, as serious as it needs to be. So again, we have Fred, right? And we're going to follow along with him, except this time we're going to be teaching the concepts of algebra. Now, I feel like this is probably a much more fun way to learn algebra than how I learned it. Fred is a funny guy. So yeah, so if you're looking for, if algebra is something that is intimidating to you, this would probably be a great jumping off point for you and your child, especially if your child hasn't really enjoyed math up until this point. And most colleges are going to look for an Algebra 1 course when, considering admissions. So if this is a good way to painlessly teach that course, if that's what you're looking for. Yeah, it's not colorful, I'll say that about it. Also, if you were wondering, I've seen this called a Christian curriculum before. I would not consider this a Christian curriculum. I think the author is Christian, and the character of Fred is a 5.5-year-old Christian professor. But it's not, it doesn't really spend any time talking about any like Christian concepts. It does say things like, don't lie, but that I think we all agree not to lie. So I wouldn't consider this a Christian curriculum. It's a curriculum written by a Christian, and I think there's a difference. So if you were looking for something more secular, I think this is secular, unless you're just opposed to any mention that religion exists, which I don't think anyone is or should be. I don't know how you would navigate life that way. But the character is Christian, but the curriculum is not. So if that's something that you're considering, that's what it is. But yeah, so if you have any more questions about the life of Fred, please let me know in the comments down below, and I'll do my best to answer. We probably won't, like I said, be utilizing this on a day-to-day basis. I will probably hand this intermediate series to my son to use as a reader, but I doubt I'll be using it right now as it intends. But I'll try to do an update video at some point to let you know how we're liking it. Did it work? Did it not work? Etc. So again, if you have any questions, leave them down in the comments below, and I will see you guys later. Bye!